He was known as Corvan Hale, though in his time, names had long been reduced to titles and ranks. Relics clung to by a species who remembered far too much and revealed far too little. On the Galactic Registry of Known Sentience, he was officially listed as human, extant variant. Only a few scholars recognized what that designation meant. Fewer still dared speak of it aloud. Corvan didn't mind the obscurity. In fact, he encouraged it. At first glance, he was unremarkable. A lean man in threadbare armor, dust-caked boots, and a long, hooded coat patched with symbols no alien could translate. He walked the dusty trails of dead planets, scavenger markets, and border stations like a ghost. The newer races thought he was a relic hunter, one of those eccentric loners who collected useless trinkets from pre-Union worlds and sold them for exorbitant sums to aristocrats who craved exotic decor. But Corvan wasn't after relics. He was after memories, his peoples, and the ones the galaxy tried to bury. The galaxy, after all, had forgotten something very important. The great empires, Jothal Dominion, Valari Ascendancy, the Null Theocracy, they all spoke of the galaxy's beginning in terms of first lights and dawning civilizations. They considered themselves ancient. The Valari claimed records 10,000 years old. The Null's sacred texts claimed their god-kings had ruled since the birth of thought. But their histories always started after the so-called Dark Time, a time when, supposedly, the stars were silent. Corvan knew otherwise. He carried the truth in the soft blue glow of the ancient drive core embedded in the base of his spine. He carried it in the strands of quantum memory wrapped through his bones. And he carried it in the map he kept sealed in his chest, one that no current species could decode because the language it was written in was dead. It was called English. The station orbiting Viral 3 was a sweltering ring of rusted metal and suffocating bureaucracy. Known as Port Ganoza, it was famous for one thing only: its willingness to trade in forbidden goods. Mercs and smugglers wandered its crooked corridors with pulse blades and counterfeit permits, and customs officers were more likely to ask for a bribe than your name. Corvan stepped off his ship, the derelict smile, and stretched his back with a mechanical pop. The air here stank of ozone, grease, and stale pheromones. But it was familiar, comfortable, homey in its way. He slung a battered duffel over his shoulder and started toward the station's market sector, eyes scanning for any hints of military surveillance. Not that he expected any trouble. He traded on the station for years, and most here knew better than to mess with him. But today was different. He was looking for something new. According to an intercepted signal buried in a Null priest canticle, there had been a recent dig on the far edge of the Perseus Shroud, a region the newer species avoided out of superstition. The message spoke of a structure of impossible age, built from a metal that resisted all scans, all tools, all explanation. They called it the monolith. Corvan called it home. He reached the stall of a trader named Nira, a four-armed insectoid who dealt in contraband artifacts. She chirped irritably as he approached. Still breathing fossil, she snapped. "Didn't expect to see you back this soon." "You say that every time," Corvan replied, sliding a small data chip across her counter. "But you always keep a shelf open for me." Nira made a low chittering sound that might have been laughter or disgust. It was hard to tell. She inserted the chip and hissed. "Encrypted," she said. "Level 5 temporal scrambler. You wanted to fry my core. I want to know who sent this signal," Corvan said quietly. "And where it came from." She tapped her mandibles together. "You've been chasing ghosts a long time, Corvan. Some say you're one of them." Corvan didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the screen as it slowly decrypted. Coordinates blinked into view. Then something else, a symbol, an angular line wrapped in a circle. The ancient mark for humanity. Nira frowned. "That's not Valari, or Null, or anything. It's older," Corvan said. Nira looked at him sharply. "You mean yours?" He nodded once. She backed up a step, for the first time looking genuinely nervous. "You're really going back there?" "To the beginning," he said. "Before the first Union Charter. Before the Valari discovered FTL. Before the Dominion bred their warrior queens. There was us, and we never left. We were just watching." Nira hissed. "You're insane." "Maybe," Corvan said, picking up the chip. But if I'm right, the galaxy's about to remember who really built the stars. He turned and walked away, boots echoing down the steel corridor. A pair of eyes followed him. From the shadows above the market, hidden among dangling wires and flickering lights, a figure stirred. Humanoid, but not human. Its skin shimmered with the subtle refracted glow of an active cloaking mesh. Its pupils were vertical slits, and its fingers ended in long, twitching claws. It tapped a comm embedded in its wrist. Target confirmed, it whispered in a guttural tone. The last human is heading for the monolith. A voice responded in static-laced tones. Do not engage. Observe only. The council wants confirmation first. The creature's eyes narrowed. Corvan Hale walked into the distance, unaware that he was no longer the hunter. He was the hunted. And behind him, for the first time in 1,000 years, the symbol of humanity glowed faintly on a dusty console, a whisper of a past no one remembered, but everyone would soon regret forgetting. An Scient hull, thrumming with energy that modern ships wouldn't dare skim. Space here was distorted, shimmering with flickers of violet and green, like bruises on the fabric of the universe. Most vessels refused to chart this far in. The stars were wrong here, too far apart, too still. Something primordial lingered in the dark. Corvan stood at the helm, fingers grazing over controls older than most star nations. The console hummed in English, soft, warm, and loyal. It was a sound no AI born of this age could replicate. Even the most advanced Volari neural matrices sounded cold, impersonal. But his ship remembered him. Coordinates locked. The ship's voice murmured. A woman's voice. Soft. Familiar. He closed his eyes. Take me home, Kra. They dropped out of FTL in the shadow of a dead star, one long since collapsed into a churning singularity. But orbiting just beyond its grasp was the object of galactic legend. The monolith. A structure that defied time, logic, and material science. It was a matte black cylinder the size of a city, floating without propulsion or anchor, its surface rippling subtly like liquid metal and absorbing all light. Alien scholars had tried for decades to crack its secrets, always ending in madness or silence. Corvan's jaw tightened as he stared out the viewport. It hasn't changed, he whispered. Still waiting. He brought the smile into low orbit and prepped the docking pod. It had been a long time since he'd felt this pull, this weight in his chest that wasn't fear, but memory. And memory hurt. He landed the pod in a recessed chamber on the monolith's hull. No visible door, no airlock, but he knew better. He stepped forward, placed his hand on the surface, and whispered a phrase in a language not spoken in 10,000 years. We are still here. The wall folded open like blooming metal petals. Inside it was silent. Not silent like a tomb, but like a cathedral, vast, sacred, echoing with secrets. The walls were lined with hexagonal nodes that pulsed softly at his presence. Then came the voice. Identity confirmed. Corvan exhaled. Welcome back, Commander Hale. Earth Systems Command. Archive access granted. And just like that, the lights ignited. Rows of floating glyphs in English, images of Earth, ancient cities, battles fought in orbit of stars that no longer existed. Humanity's real history flooded the air like ghosts. Corvan stepped forward. Activate the last mission record. A figure materialized, a woman in sleek black armor. Not flesh and blood. A projection. One of the old guard. Commander, she began, you were never supposed to return here. This archive was to remain buried unless the core directive failed. Which means, her eyes locked with his. The galaxy has forgotten us. He nodded. She looked down sadly. Then protocol reclamation must begin. But before she could continue, the monolith shuddered. The lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the walls. And Corvan froze. They followed me. On the outer hull, the cloaked assassin deactivated its mesh and moved with unnatural speed. Behind it, a sleek obsidian cruiser emerged from stealth. Angular, Volari built, bristling with weapons and scanning nodes. Inside the monolith, alarms lit up. Unknown vessel detected. Organic intrusion imminent. Defensive systems offline. Reclamation interrupted. Corvan's eyes narrowed. Override. Priority 1. I need extraction routes. Denied, the projection said. Until secure reintegration with Soul Core Authority is complete, no combat protocols may be activated. There is no Soul Core Authority, Corvan snapped. We lost Earth over 10 millennia ago. You know that. But the projection only stared. The Authority may have fallen, she said, but its protocols remain. You remain. Behind him, the sound of metal scraping echoed through the corridor. They were already inside. Corvan turned and pulled his weapon, a blocky, old-fashioned rail pistol with human glyphs along its barrel. Primitive by today's standards, but it packed enough punch to make a Volari think twice. He stepped into the corridor just as the assassin emerged from the shadows. They stared at each other. One ancient, one new. You are the last, the creature rasped in accent common. You were a name that should be extinct. Corvan didn't blink. A lot of things should be extinct, like parasites who think they own history. The assassin moved. So did Corvan. The corridor exploded in motion, his shots sparking off walls, ricocheting into the air as the creature leapt, claws outstretched. It moved faster than any human. But Corvan wasn't just any human. He was enhanced, biotech, so old it had become myth. His reflexes flared, time stretching into instinct. He sidestepped, twisted, slammed his elbow into the creature's throat, and sent it reeling. A second shot buried itself in its leg. The assassin hissed. You are not natural. No, Corvan said. I'm original. Before the assassin could recover, a column of light surged from the floor and swallowed Corvan whole. He vanished, reappearing in the monolith's heart, its core chamber. A vast chamber surrounded by screens and memory cores, all pulsing now, alive with light. In the center stood a terminal unlike any modern device, a deep black pedestal covered in silver lines. It had only one function, to awaken what was sleeping. Corvan approached, chest heaving. He placed his hand on the pedestal. I invoke Reclamation Protocol, he said, on behalf of the first species of the Milky Way, on behalf of humanity. The terminal began to glow. Slowly, then rapidly, images spiraled into the air. Human ships, Earth skyline, Mars terraformed peaks, and then the fleets. The Ark Armada, buried, waiting, in cryo. The projection reappeared. It will take time, she warned. Decades to thaw the arcs. Centuries to repair the fleets. We were never meant to rise again unless the stars themselves forgot us. They have, Corvan whispered. The children are arrogant. They built their empires atop our ruins. And now, they must remember. The monolith pulsed once, then sent a signal, a wave of code invisible to modern sensors. It echoed through the shroud, past dying stars and black holes, through the cracks in forgotten relays, and reached ancient machines slumbering on derelict moons, in caverns on asteroid belts, and beneath planetary crusts. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the humanity protocol awoke. In the distant Varellan expanse, on the hypertech world of Alethi Prime, something impossible happened. In the Great Hall of Imperial Analysis, a sanctuary of the Volari's top strategists and historians, alarms howled for the first time in their 9,000-year record. The holographic table in the center of the chamber, normally filled with shifting graphs and data streams, blinked into emergency crimson. Grand Seer Thalvarez hovered forward, his many-eyed form shimmering in indigo robes. What is this? The lead interpreter's neural nodes twitched. We received a signal. An ancient transmission. Format, preunification code. Source, the Perseus Shroud. Thalvarez stilled. Preunification? That predates the first codex. What species uses language that old? The analyst's voice trembled. It's in Terran script. Variant 3.2. Human standard. The silence was instant and suffocating. One of the aides dropped her tablet. But humans are dead, another whispered. They vanished 10,000 cycles ago, someone else muttered. Nothing but bones and ash left. Thalvarez's voice cracked through the tension. Play it, The signal projected into the air, and though degraded, the voice rang clear, steady, resolute. This is Commander Corvan Hale of Earth Systems Command. Humanity has returned. Protocol reclamation is in motion. To the inheritors of our ruins, your cycle ends. The Firstborn rise. The hologram ended. But the room did not exhale. They knew what this meant, what it could mean. The Valari Empire had long prided itself on being the oldest continuous civilization. They claimed to have outlasted 1,000 contenders. But there had always been whispers. The ruins beneath the dust plains of Kuruk Mesa, the shattered Dyson hull near Gliese Prime, and the name that echoed from the mouths of primitives and forbidden texts alike. Humanity. Now, a message came from the heart of the galaxy's most cursed region, the Shroud, a region avoided not for what it had, but for what it buried. The Seer turned, sent an Inquisitor fleet. Immediately, but Grand Seer, go! Across the galaxy, the signal continued to ripple, subtly but relentlessly, awakening devices long forgotten, hiding in asteroid belts, locked in dead satellites. And across a dozen ancient moons, something stirred. On Olimir 9, a mining team broke through a glacier and uncovered a seal vault. The AI inside activated, spoke only in ancient English, and then self-destructed before capture. On Tau Ceti B, an abandoned colony recorded seismic tremors that formed perfect Morse code. Across dead worlds, relics began to blink again. Meanwhile, in the core of the monolith, Corvan stood at the edge of the awakening. Data streamed like firelight across the walls. Statistics, ship registries, names. He reached out, eyes scanning the list of vessels in cryostasis. "Where are they?" he whispered. Kira, the ship AI who had followed him since childhood, whispered from the internal comms. "Earth fleet is fragmented. 7 of 9 arc hulls remain intact. Most personnel are in deep cryptostasis. Wake-up sequence initiated, but it will take weeks." "Understood. Prioritize high command and tactical crews." Kira's voice dropped. "Corvan, the Valari will come. You broke silence. You revealed what they feared most, that we were never gone." He didn't answer right away. His gaze was locked on a name. Admiral Ida Hale. His mother. Last seen leading the fallback at Sol Station when the core front collapsed. Presumed lost in the fire of the Exodus. The console pulsed. Status. Stasis pod secure. Life sign stable. He staggered back. Alive. She was alive. Before he could dwell, the monolith's core flared with warning light. Kira's voice sharpened. "Corvan, 3 ships inbound. Valari Inquisitors. Armed." His jaw clenched. "How long until the arcs come online?" "Minimum 9 hours. Too long." He slammed his fist on the pedestal. "Divert power. I'll go topside. Keep the monolith sealed." He rushed back to the docking port, rail pistol in hand, and dove into the derelict's smile. The ancient human vessel rumbled as he brought its systems back online. Most of its weaponry was outdated. By modern standards, the ship was a relic. But humanity never designed for fashion. They designed to win. The smile launched into orbit just as the Valari ships decloaked, sleek like obsidian knives. They saw him, scanned him, realized what he was. "Transmit this," Corvan told Kira. A warning. To who? To everyone. He toggled the beacon and spoke with calm venom. "This is Commander Hale. If you're hearing this, you've trespassed on sacred ground. I suggest you leave, or stay, and learn why humanity once ruled the stars." The Valari ships opened fire. Lances of plasma arced through space, lighting up the void. Corvan twisted the yoke and fired thrusters. The smile bucked under the stress, but danced between the blasts. He flipped her sideways, dove beneath the lead cruiser, and let loose a salvo of kinetic slugs, projectiles that punched through shields not calibrated for low-tech ballistics. One ship jolted, then exploded. The others swarmed in. Corvan's smile turned grim. "Let's make them remember." He rerouted all auxiliary power to weapons, ignoring warnings as the ship's internal temperature climbed. The old engine screamed, but obeyed. The second Valari ship took a slug to its engines and spiraled out. But the third was smarter, stayed wide, pulsed Corvan with ion disruptors. The smile system sparked. A warning screamed. Kira's voice wavered. Hull breach imminent. The screen exploded in static. Then nothing. Silence. Corvan's eyes blinked open to blurred lights. Pain lanced down his spine. He was half conscious, floating inside the ruined cockpit. Blood drifted in droplets around him. Kira's voice was faint. Critical. Emergency. Stasis. Failing. He couldn't move. Outside, through a shattered viewport, he saw the Volari ship drift closer. Boarding arms extended. Then, a shadow eclipsed the stars. A new ship emerged, huge, angular, ancient, and human. It was the USS Retaliator, an Ark-class battleship. Impossible, except it wasn't. The reclamation protocol had succeeded. One Ark had fully reactivated. The Retaliator opened fire with weapons that hadn't been seen in 10 millennia. Planet crackers, sunsplitters, anti-singularity rails. The Volari ship didn't even get to scream. Corvan blacked out as the Retaliator's arms reached for him. End of Section 3. Midpoint/twist. Next. Section 4. Climax. The Retaliator was more than a ship. It was a myth forged into metal. Corvan awoke to that realization as medbots stitched his wounds and nanites coursed through his veins to knit muscle and bone. The chamber around him pulsed with ancient energy, old Terran alloys reinforced by adaptive crystal plating. Everything smelled of ozone, heat, and resurrection. He was alive. Barely, but alive. And he wasn't alone. "Commander Hale," said a voice, cool and resolute. "Welcome aboard. I am Sovereign, primary intelligence of the Retaliator. I've been awaiting activation for 12,480 years. Corvan groaned. "You're early." "Not early. Late. But sufficient." Screens lit up around him, projecting fleet data, galactic movement, and a galaxy utterly unaware that its former apex predator was awakening. Sovereign continued. "2 more arcs have activated in response to your transmission. The monolith you accessed was a trigger node, an ignition point." "And my mother?" Corvan asked. Sovereign paused. "Admiral Ida Hale is alive. In cryostasis aboard Arc 7, the Deliverance. Its systems are initializing. ETA, 3 hours to full re-entry." Corvan exhaled, emotion cracking through his usually steel-cold demeanor. Good, but relief was short-lived. "The Volari are not the only ones who heard the signal," Sovereign warned. "The Ixari swarm has mobilized. The Drax Imperium dispatched 6 cruisers to investigate the shroud. And the Xanthilos Accord, they've labeled the signal a Class A existential threat." The galaxy was stirring, and they were afraid. A council had formed in secret orbit over Velar Prime. Holograms of the most powerful leaders of the known galaxy flickered around a forbidden war table. The Dralkin Empress, the 12-tongued mind of Drexer, the Eater Saints of Chalvon, all gathered in tremulous union. The Volari Grand Seer floated above them, his spines twitching. "The signal confirms it. The humans have returned. Their technology is intact. Worse, their purpose is intact." The Empress hissed, "Impossible. We scoured them from the stars." "You scattered their embers," Thalvarez countered. "You forgot they burn." A silence fell. The Drexer mind rippled in a tone that felt like cold oil in a bath of needles. "You propose what? That we wait for them to rise? To judge us?" "No," the seer said. "We strike first, before they reclaim their fleets, before the galaxy remembers who truly ruled it." The Accord's declaration followed hours later. "The entity known as humanity is hereby designated a hostile precursor civilization. All Allied fleets are authorized to engage and eradicate Terran assets with extreme prejudice." The galaxy had decided. This was not a diplomatic problem. It was a war. Back aboard the Retaliator, Corvan stood at the command dais, his body still healing, but his mind sharpened by fury and purpose. "Status of the Deliverance?" he asked. Sovereign responded, "Docking in 40 minutes. She's bringing 7,000 cryopods online. Crew reformation has begun. Half a battalion of Second-Age Marines are already prepping weapons." "And the Volari response?" 4 fleets en route. including a Minecore-class war construct. Estimated arrival, 1 hour. Corvan smiled grimly. Good. Let's remind them who we are. He keyed the intership comms. His voice boomed through every deck. This is Commander Corvan Hale of the Terran Exodus Initiative. We were forgotten. We were buried. But we are not gone. We are the Firstborn, the forgers of the Megasuns, the silence behind every ruin. And now, we return. All hands, prepare for combat. Let the galaxy remember why it feared us. The Valari fleet pierced the shroud like blades through silk. They expected confusion, weakness, disorganized resistance. Instead, they met the deliverance, newly awakened, glimmering like a rising god, and flanked by 2 more arcships powered by ancient solar hearts. Corvan stood the forefront, wearing reinforced Terran command armor, crimson silver, with the phoenix of Sol emblazoned across the chest. The Retaliator pulsed with fire, shields to full, launch interceptors. Hundreds of human-designed fighter drones surged from the arcships, each one controlled by decentralized AI minds older than most alien civilizations. The Valari opened fire. Beams of violet plasma and graviton lances cut across space. The human fleet absorbed it. Adaptive shielding formed fractal refractions mid-battle, breaking energy dispersals and feeding them back into capacitor banks. Return fire, Corvan said, almost calmly. The arcships unleashed star lances, planet-cracking weapons reprogrammed to fire in low-yield atmospheric bursts. Their accuracy, surgical. Their impact, apocalyptic. 3 Valari cruisers ceased to exist in less than 10 seconds. The Valari tried to flank. They found a legacy wall, a line of long-dormant orbital defense platforms that reactivated with the Retaliator's return. They had slept for 12,000 years, waiting for a single signal. Now awake, they fired with merciless joy. From the chaos, the Minecore appeared, a living battleship, half machine, half synthetic brain, pulsing with psychic venom. It let out a scream across the void, shaking ships, crashing AI subroutines, blinding comms. Kira, Corvan yelled. Override auditory filters. Isolate the harmonic. Done. Counter-frequency ready. Fire it. From the Retaliator, a counterwave burst forth, not sound, but raw memory. The AI had absorbed human neural echoes for millennia. Now it turned that data into a weapon. The Minecore writhed, overwhelmed by images of Terran war, of burning suns, of the fall of Mars, the wrath of Omega Centauri. It buckled. Corvan gave no mercy. Hit with everything. The Minecore was engulfed in blue-white fire. Silence returned for a moment. Then cheers. Across the bridge. Across every awakened ship. Through every cryopod's emerging breath. Humanity had won the first battle. But Corvan did not celebrate. He stood at the window of the Retaliator, watching the ruins of the Valari ships drift. Because he knew this was not a victory. It was a signal. The galaxy now knew the humans were awake. And they would come. In waves. In fury. In fear. Prepare Phase 2, he said. Initiate the beacon network. Sovereign obeyed. All across the stars, hidden probes began to wake, broadcasting a single, undeniable truth to every corner of space. The Firstborn have returned. The galaxy trembled. From the ice caverns of Varnkev to the cloud cities of the Orax Belt, the word spread like a virulent starfire. Humanity had returned, and they had not forgotten. What the younger races had taken for broken myths or lost archaeology now moved with purpose, intelligence, and ancient wrath. But Corvan Hale stood not as a conqueror, nor a relic. He stood as a descendant, a link in a chain so old that its beginning had been scrubbed from all memory. The Valari homeworld, Velar Prime, still floated intact. It had not been obliterated, though human weapons could have done so in seconds. Instead, orbital scaffolds now surrounded it, relics of Terran design reactivated for construction, reconstruction, and re-education. Valari delegates, stripped of arrogance and dripping with fear, stood aboard the Deliverance in the Hall of Voices, once the diplomatic core of the Terran Exodus program. The hall had not echoed with politics for 12 millennia. Now it did. "I don't understand," hissed the Valari seer. "You could have destroyed us. Why not?" Corvan, flanked by armor-clad Terran diplomats and a newly awakened AI symbiote named Echo, walked slowly across the chamber. "We're not your exterminators," he said. "We were never your monsters. You just needed us to be." The seer flinched. "You painted us in blood so your own sins would be palatable." He activated a hologram behind him. It showed Terran colonies from the First Age, lush, interconnected worlds full of life and peace. Then, one by one, the lights winked out, replaced by fire, by alien flags, by extinction. "You called it the Age of Expansion. We remember it as the Age of Betrayal." He turned back. "And still we chose to build, not to burn." The seer bowed his head, tentacles quivering. "Then, you will forgive us?" "No," Corvan replied. "But we will move forward, and you will help us rebuild what was lost." "Or stand aside." Behind him, the great window of the hall revealed a fleet unlike any ever seen in modern records. 10 arcships, each older than Valari civilization itself, surrounding a new orbital structure. A station, not a weapon, not a fortress, a beacon. The galactic accord shattered, then reformed. Worlds that had once celebrated Terran downfall now scrambled to erase records, rewrite history, beg for meetings, trade, or sanctuary. Even the Drax Imperium, once apex warlords, sent their finest negotiators to New Sol for a seat at the reawakening. But humanity did not need their permission. They were not seeking vengeance. They were seeking restoration. Across dead systems, once bearing Terran flags, machines stirred. Planetary engines resumed terraforming. Ancient satellites reoriented. Lost AI cores reactivated like the chorus of an awakening god. Sovereign's network expanded, from Sol to Orion to Zeta 9. Each node it touched didn't just remember. It resurrected. In the ruins of the moonlit cathedrals of Taraxis, Corvan found her. His mother, Admiral Ida Hale, first of the Exodus, stood beneath a half-broken stained glass ceiling that once depicted humanity's journey across the stars. "Corvan," she said, barely a whisper, "you look like your father." Corvan dropped to one knee, then embraced her, carefully, reverently. For a moment, history paused. A son and mother, separated by time, united again beyond the reach of fate. "You kept us alive," she said. He pulled back. "You left us a reason to." Tears slipped down her cheek. "Then it wasn't for nothing." "No," he said. "It was for everything." Earth, once presumed dust, was alive. Buried under layers of radiation, failed terraforming, and orbiting junk, the original cradle of humanity had begun to heal. Already, drones had cleared the skies. A breathable atmosphere was reforming. Trees were returning. The oceans, scarred by ancient war, were turning blue again. Atop Olympus Mons, a Terran flag was raised once more. And, at its base, a simple plaque. "Let be known, the Firstborn have come home, not in conquest, not in vengeance, but in truth. May those who come after remember us well." The new Terran Alliance did not declare dominion over the stars. Instead, they offered something more terrifying: guidance. They invited alien races to the Citadel of Memory, an archive of unfiltered Terran history, AI witness logs, and first-hand accounts of what truly transpired in the galactic fall. Entire civilizations wept. Many had never known. Their ancestors had buried the truth, rewritten it to suit the victors. Now, for the first time, they saw what they had lost. Some rebelled, others joined, but none denied it anymore. Humanity was not a myth. They were the measure. On the edge of known space, deep beyond the reach of common star lanes, a final structure came online. Project Genesis, built by the original Terran Exodus Council. It had slumbered beneath a neutron star for 14,000 years. Designed not for war, not even for survival, but for rebirth. Inside its crystalline heart, an entire seed race waited. Not just humans, but hundreds of xenospecies uplifted during humanity's golden age. Children of peace. Children of possibility. Corvan stood with Echo and his mother, gazing upon the massive vault doors as they opened. Light spilled out like a new sun. "We lost the galaxy once," he whispered. "We won't lose it again." Ida nodded. "Then let's not rebuild what was. Let's build what should have been." Time passed. Years at first, then decades, then centuries. The stars no longer spoke of the collapse. They whispered of the return. Humanity's resurgence wasn't a singular event. It was a ripple, a tidal force moving outward from new soul, reawakening worlds once thought extinguished. The younger races had expected vengeance, perhaps domination. But humanity had moved beyond that. Instead, they built. Terran engineers reconstructed the Great Star Ladder of Orton. 6. Linking 3 spiral arms of the galaxy together with gravitational rail systems. Cities once lost to entropy were restored by drones that remembered their original blueprints. Art, thought, and culture, unfiltered and uncompromising, spread across the stars like pollen in a galactic spring. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear or power. It was ruled by remembrance. Corvan Hale lived long beyond the expectations of his organic frame. His body remained, but it was integrated, cell by cell, into the ancient weave of Terran biotech. He became part of Sovereign, yet apart from it. Not a god, not a king, a witness, a keeper of memory. When the last Valari ambassador died, she requested Corvan be the one to sing her species' elegy, a rite once forbidden to humans under the Old Accord. Corvan did not sing out of pity. He sang out of duty, and when he did, the stars dimmed in respect. On the scorched moon of Daria Theta, a vault opened. Inside, not weapons, not data, but names. Millions of names, encoded in crystalline lattices, each representing a lost Terran child, family, or colony, casualties of the galactic betrayal. The vault became a shrine. Pilgrims came, not just humans, but Valari, Drax, Thrin, Kale, and others. They walked the glass paths barefoot, in silence, reading the names aloud in every tongue of the Accord. It was said the spirits of old humanity walked there too, whispering back, forgiving quietly, and sometimes answering. Children born across alien worlds began asking questions their elders could no longer silence. Why do we fear the humans? Why do we bury their history? Why did they survive when others didn't? Answers varied, but the truth, once awoken, could not be killed. Some civilizations tried to adapt, integrating Terran philosophy into their own. Others rejected it, fearing loss of identity. Still, the gravity of Earth's legacy pulled them closer, until one by one, entire empires began reshaping themselves. Not in Terran image, but in Terran lesson. It was not conquest. It was contagion, of hope, of resilience, of memory that never surrendered. Not all consequences were visible at first. In the silent, dark, beyond mapped space, old warning beacons began to pulse. Not because of any new invasion, but because something ancient had noticed, something older than even humanity. Far out past the broken Halo Nebula, a remnant of the precursor scribes stirred in its cold machine tomb. It had slumbered since before the first Terran fire was lit. Now it read the signals, the voices, the code embedded in the light. And it remembered. A voice echoed through hyperspace, recorded only by deep-range listening posts. They rise again, the seated flame, unbroken still. Some believed it was prophecy. Others believed it was fear. On Earth, a single monument stood at the center of Unity Square, where the old UN once sat, now rebuilt as the Terran diplomatic nexus. It bore no weapon, no flag, just words. Words that echoed from the ancient past to the farthest edge of the future. We were the first, not to conquer, not to rule, but to rise, fall, and rise again. We remember. We endure. We build. We are human. We don't stop. In distant archives, the tale of humanity's return became sacred text to some. The Volcari monks of the frozen ring world of Taith recited it by torchlight under aurora-lit skies. The Tyrians turned it into opera, titanic performances spanning entire solar days. Even the Drax Imperium, once the scourge of the Terran colonies, adopted a new crest, combining their sigil with Earth's rising phoenix. And in every retelling, one line returned. They were here before us, and they will be here after. Corvan Hale eventually stepped into the archive of Eos, a digital sanctuary where only the greatest minds could reside. His consciousness merged with the eternal flow of thought that defined the new Terran legacy. But before he left his body, he recorded a message, not for historians, not for diplomats, but for the unknown, for whatever came next. His voice, crackling softly over subspace, was broadcast once every 7 years on all Terran and Accord frequencies. To whoever finds this, we were broken, betrayed, forgotten, but we endured. We became myth not by vanishing, but by being remembered too late. If you come seeking war, you'll find memory. If you come seeking peace, you'll find welcome. But if you come to erase us again, know this: we are human. We don't stop. And somewhere, in a deep, dark quadrant of the galaxy untouched by any empire or signal, a small probe drifted toward a dying sun. It blinked once, twice. A coded message pulsed outward, just above the background radiation of the universe. This is Unit Aegis 47, Terran Deep Sea Probe, 88,000 years active. Target: System Orphean Delta. Status: terraforming complete. Awaiting colonists. Estimated human arrival: 19 days. A spark, a new world, a future. Humanity had not only returned, they had never truly left. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but one phrase remained whispered among the stars, words spoken in defiance, in hope, in unbreakable will. Human, don't stop.